Dave, I think just to help us out, do you have a real life story where you've uncovered salvage fraud?
We've got a couple of really great stories about uncovering salvage fraud. The first one was a company where they were upgrading their mobile phones from iPhone 6 to iPhone 8. And there were about 3,000 employees. So all of the brand new iPhone 8s came in, and they were all logged, their serial numbers, everything were logged, and who had taken the phone, and all meticulously done out. So there's no fraud there. However, all of the phones that came back, that were handed back in by the employees, were just put in a box, and nobody thought anything more of it. Now, what happened is that the person who was handing out the phones realized that the iPhone 6s were still worth money. And she made a deal with her local mobile phone shop that she would sell them these iPhones for $40 a piece. And there were 4,000 of them. So 4,000 times $40 is $160,000 that she walked out with just because of salvage fraud.
Oh, so she didn't put it back in the company?
No, she put it in her pocket. Very nice way of earning yourself a quick $100,000. And then the other one, which was really interesting, was a mine. And this is a mine that was mining coal, and they had a whole lot of conveyor belts for moving the coal from the coal face out of the mine, and so that it could then be packaged up and sold. And every now and again, these belts need replacing. But there's value in the belt. There's value in the rubber. There's value in the rollers. Because the rollers are all made of metal. And so what the company did is they decided that, okay, well, what we'll do is when any of this equipment needs scrapping, we will allow the recreational center to sell the broken down stuff that we've taken out of the mine, and any of the profits from that will go into the rec center. And it sounded like a really good idea, and over time, when it first started, they were selling stuff and it was going into the rec center, and they built a swimming pool for the staff, and they built a couple of tennis courts, and things were going along really well. But what nobody realized is that there was a lack of control at the rec center. With it being just a minor operation, it had one person who was the signatory, he was also the manager, and he controlled the books. So he decided at one point in time, hey, look, nobody's looking at the money that's coming into the rec center. So he decided to split the money 50-50. He would take 50% and the club would take 50%. But because he was also a manager at the mine, he had the ability to scrap certain items. So when we caught up with him, he had just scrapped a brand new conveyor belt system because he wanted to sell it in order to make money so that he could buy a new car for himself. And so he scrapped a $300,000 brand new system to sell it on the secondhand market, where he got around about $150,000 for it. And he split that $100,000 to himself and $50,000 to the rec center.
So I was going to ask you, is he not just selling just junk? But I mean, that kind of answers my question, right? Because that's not just junk.
Because junk has value. And this is a problem. I mean, your statement there is exactly why salvage fraud works so well, because it's just junk. You know, we had another case, which was an insurance in the insurance industry, where a lady was responsible for all of the products that came through that had been damaged. So you have a water damage at your house, you have an air conditioning unit that's been damaged, you have whatever. Those all go back to the insurance company, to the salvage, and they're then meant to on-sell it and put the money back into the company. But because it's so hard to work out what price is for anything that's damaged, nobody really takes an interest. It's junk. And so what that allowed this lady to do was to set up a company with her friend, and they went and bought all of this junk and started selling it themselves and making a huge markup on the amount that they'd purchased it for. And so they got away with at least a couple of $1 million before they were found.
So this is a question for that exact story, Dave. Surely it's the person who sold them the things who's accountable for fraud and not her. And she didn't make the price. She just is buying junk.
Well, the person who's buying the junk depends on whether they're an accomplice or not in the scheme. It's the person who's in control of the salvaged items that really is in control of how it's sold. And again, because of the way salvage works, very little is often thought of how much you should get for that item, and therefore, who cares? So there's normally only one signatory. Not many people are paying attention to the amount of money that goes through. I mean, a brilliant example is if you send something back to Amazon, a lot of that product ends up on a skip, which then just gets sold off to the highest bidder and you can pick up a skip for $50, $100, and there could be $10,000 worth of product on that pallet. And that's salvage fraud, in effect, is how it works, because if I know that there's really good product going on to one pallet, I can tell my buddy, bid on that pallet, because there's some really good stuff in there. And they can then bid on that, win that one at a really low price and make a fortune.
I mean, it's pretty crazy, but it almost seems like a good business idea and something that you could just pretend like you're none the wiser, right? So I didn't know. And I mean, on that, like, what controls can you put in? How can you stop this? And how do you explain or educate the ordinary person about it?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. If you're a company that does get a lot of returns, how do you treat those returns? What are the policies and procedures that you've got over those returns? Who monitors what is actually happening with those returns on a monthly basis? Is there somebody who's looking at and saying, are we getting the best price for these returns the whole time? In the case where product's meant to be destroyed, are we looking to see that the right number of product has actually been destroyed, or have some of them just gone missing?
No worries. So this is an interesting one, Dave, a little bit out of your scope, I think, but I've seen a lot of things on the internet recently where they'd say luxury handbags don't sell, and instead of selling them onto somebody and then them having it on the secondhand market, they just destroy it, right? Because they don't want to bring down the price of the luxury item. Some people are saying like you shouldn't be getting rid of perfectly good product. Why are you destroying it? Like, why don't you just let it go to the secondhand market? Any insights on that?
When you're dealing with luxury brands, there are two things which drive a luxury brand: scarcity and price. If you want to buy a Gucci handbag or a top-of-the-range handbag, you're not looking for everybody to have the same handbag. You're wanting to go out and be special. You're wanting to go out. And for that, you're willing to pay a huge premium. Now, if you have a damaged container or damaged shipment, and these are now, they've got nicks in them, maybe, a little bit of water damage, maybe they've got a few scratches on and stuff like that. To you and me, that would be a perfectly normal sellable product. But because they want the product at the highest possible range, they don't want to sell that as a product, nor do they want to sell it as a second, because the differences between that product and the main product are so small that people going along would say, I'm going to buy a handbag for $10,000, but hang on, I can get the same handbag for $1,000 because it's just got a little bit of water damage on it. You know what? I'm going to get it home, that brand new bag home, and within a week it's going to have as much water damage on as this other handbag. So I'm going to buy the cheap one. And so be it. And so to protect their brand and the pricing, what they do is they would rather destroy the item than to sell it on at a cheaper price. And surprisingly, it's not just that type of product. Until recently, when you went to a supermarket, fresh vegetables which had got just past their date, they would rather destroy rather than sell them at a lower price. That is one thing, fortunately, which is starting to change. But that just goes to show you that people will try and maintain a price no matter what.
And that, I mean, I've heard about even ugly carrots and ugly tomatoes. No one wants to buy an ugly tomato. What if there's a little bit of salvage fraud that goes into that? I could get behind that kind of salvage fraud, though, Dave.
I'm pretty sure there is. I mean, who does the classification of what is an ugly tomato or not? I mean, as they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But at the end of the day, you know, if you are looking to make a profit or you looking to sell good quality product and at a lower price, all you do is you mark off a box as being ugly tomatoes rather than good quality tomatoes, and you sell them to your greengrocer mate. Instead of for $50 for the punnet, you're selling it for $5 for the punnet because they're not up to standard.
You sell it to me, and I will make you tomato sauce. So that's a bit of a business idea there.
Yeah. Not that, you know, anybody's going to worry when they cut up a tomato and they make tomato sauce what the tomato looked like originally.
Exactly. So now, what's your go-to advice for companies that want to keep salvage fraud from slipping through the cracks?
The biggest thing is to have controls and to make sure that the controls are followed up on a regular basis. So to do a regular audit of that area to make sure that these are the products that came in, this is how much was sold, and you know, that gives you a really good idea about whether it's working or not. But, you know, we tend to think of salvage fraud as being small items. I remember doing a job for a car dealership, car manufacturer actually. And what happened is they'd had a top-end car. It'd come back 3 or 4 times for minor defects. You know, this isn't working, that's not working. That happens. And eventually this car ended up in the customer services department ledger. So instead of going back onto the showroom floor or back into inventory stock, it ended up in customer services. Now, customer services was never designed in this company to have a car come back to them. And very quickly, the lady who was in charge figured out that nobody is watching this car and sold it on the black market and made, you know, a good $30,000-$40,000 on selling the car, and nobody knew that the car had even gone.